A huge swell, evolving in size and power, crosses hundreds of miles of deep open sea. When it comes, it will come from the north, and they will be waiting. Halfway across the world, they have prepared themselves for a confrontation of epic proportions, as they take the centuries-old art of surfing to its most dangerous extreme. These are the extreme surfers, a handful of world-class athletes with the courage and skill to challenge the world's largest and most dangerous waves. Liquid mountains that move like locomotives and explode like bombs.
The power of those waves is like a nuclear explosion.
A wave that has so much power that if it went through a city block, it'd knock it all down. You make a mistake, you're gonna pay for it.
I mean, worst case scenario is you die.
The term extreme has found a liberal application in modern pop culture. In the world of athletics, extreme has come to be defined as any sport where one mistake can kill you. Perhaps no other sport fits that bill better than big wave surfing. Storms produce massive swells that travel across thousands of miles of ocean, where they release their energy as potentially deadly waves weighing thousands of tons. Waves that can shatter eardrums, snap limbs, and hold even the strongest swimmer underwater for minutes at a time. Since 1994, 3 of surfing's elite have been killed. Waves break all over the world, but only a handful of breaks have earned a lethal reputation. These spots have taken on a life of their own, with appropriate nicknames such as Jaws, Mavericks, and Killers, places where legends have been made.
When you really hit a really big wave, basically you're concentrating so much, all your energy is focused on just making the drop. You need to paddle really hard and be aggressive and get up quick. It's pretty amazing adrenaline rush right then, because you know you're being chased by this lip that's gonna, if you don't make it, you're gonna get absolutely obliterated, and if you do make it, you're gonna be screaming for joy.
The art of surfing was born on the Hawaiian Islands and was considered a central part of early culture. In the early 1900s, surfing's legendary pioneer, Duke Kahanamoku, compared the feeling of riding on a wave to standing like a god. As it has evolved, traditional surfing has been compared to a dance with the sea, a blend of athleticism, style, and grace in tune to the rhythm of the waves, a soulful expression of man in harmony with the liquid realm of the earth. With no continental shelf and no significant landmass between Hawaii and the Gulf of Alaska, powerful ocean swells travel uninterrupted until they meet the Hawaiian reefs, creating surf conditions considered to be the best on Earth. The first place to gain a legendary reputation among big wave surfers was Oahu's North Shore, home to what many surfers consider the most perfect wave on Earth, Pipeline. The beauty of Pipeline's near-perfect wave belies its danger. The surf breaks over a coral reef in water that is less than 3 feet deep. A 15-foot wave thunders down with thousands of pounds of force. The power of Pipeline has earned this break a reputation as one of big wave surfing's legendary beasts.
The beauty of Pipeline, but the beast of the hazards. When you get in that barrel and you come out, you just feel, just a beautiful feeling. But when you get hit by the beast, you're just screaming in terror.
Surfers refer to the falling lip of the wave as the guillotine, a force that can snap surfboards in two, break bones, and hurl bodies into the reef.
One of the things that separates Pipeline from other waves is there is a severe consequence to riding the place. I've seen a lot of people get injured there. Some people die, and I think it's that consequence that kind of keeps everybody on their toes when they ride the place.
A world champion body surfer and bodyboarder, Mike Stewart is a veteran of Pipeline.
Pipeline is basically an intense surfing environment. If you can imagine an intense wave magnified tenfold, that's kind of what the feel you get out at Pipeline is. All this energy converges all at once in this one little zone and produces some incredible surf.
Extreme surfers consider the danger of Pipeline a small price to pay for the thrill of riding in the barrel. Precious dreamlike seconds when they find themselves enveloped by walls of surging water. A surreal experience they call being in the green room.
And once you're inside of it, it's almost as if time slows down. It becomes this, you're inside of a room, basically, a big green room that has water walls. And usually I just like to stand there and just look around. I kind of look around, and you're always looking for the way out.
When the walls of water converge as the wave closes out, they create a vacuum of air which virtually spits the surfer from the mouth of the receding tube. When a surfer feels this burst of air, he knows he has survived the beast.
It's pretty much the apex of the surfing experience is to get inside of the barrel. Imagine riding inside of a tornado and coming out clean. You're surrounded by chaos and power and heaviness, but you're inside this calm little area,
While Pipeline has become world famous for its sublime perfection, another North Shore break has come to be feared for its biblical power. It's called Waimea Bay. Waimea Bay has always been Hawaii's most notorious big wave break, the one by which all waves and all extreme surfers are measured.
Waimea is like a charging rhino, the testing zone for all surfers.
No one charges Waimea like Ken Bradshaw. A Texas native, at 47 years of age, Bradshaw has been surfing Waimea Bay for over 20 years.
You have to be mentally prepared for what's going to come, so if you make that step to Waimea, you're prepared for what Waimea has to offer, and it will be the worst wipeouts of your life.
Waimea is the most feared and respected break in Hawaii. Most surfers spend years apprenticing on smaller waves before even attempting the jump to Waimea. The Giants have been thundering into Waimea Bay since time began, but they weren't surfed until 1957. Californians, such as Greg Knoll, had long since migrated to Hawaii for bigger and better waves.
I mean, we were so hooked on the whole North Shore scene. We went over there and we were like the first guys to really live in a house and just be total surf rats and, concentrate on nothing but surfing. And that was my lifestyle for the next 25 years.
Knoll's crowd called him Da Bull for his fearlessness, but even Knoll backed down from Waimea. When the big waves came thundering in, they could feel the earthquake up on the hills a mile inland, forming ripples in their morning coffee. A dark cloud of fear loomed over the break for decades.
We were watching Waimea all this time, and it reared up a few times. I mean, the thing had some serious taboos, and nobody wanted to mess with it.
Locals thought the bay was haunted, but it was only a matter of time before the Bull would charge through the breakers. On a November day in 1957, he led 5 friends out to the bay.
I really believe I ended up catching the first wave. It wasn't much of a wave. Within 15, 20 minutes there, several waves had been ridden, and by the end of the day, the whole spell had been broken, and that's it. And that was Waimea.
20 years later, surfers like Bradshaw would take this monster break to limits Noel and his friends never dreamed.
Bradshaw and those guys are fabulous athletes. They're balls to the wall, big wave riders for sure.
Bradshaw's aggressive tactics led to him mastering Waimea. By the early 90s, he and other big wave riders were looking for greater challenges. They were ready to confront the North Shore's mythical outer reefs. Over a mile offshore, these reefs lie in deep water and only break when monster swells hit the island. The mammoth waves that form here dwarf even the fabled giants of Waimea Bay. These extreme waves had never been ridden. Attempting to surf one of these mountains of water was considered suicidal. But in 1994, a technical innovation changed the face of surfing forever. By the time big wave surfers, such as Ken Bradshaw, had brought Waimea to the mainstream of the sport, they were already looking for greater challenges.
It becomes like, okay, what's next? Because you've challenged Waimea, you've felt comfortable at Waimea, it's become your comfort zone. It's time to push out of that envelope.
Bradshaw and the rest of the Waimea crew watched in awe as huge waves broke on the North Shore's outer reefs. Places like phantoms and alligators, with faces routinely reaching 50 to 60 feet. To them, these waves were unsurfable, even if they managed to reach the break. The waves themselves were moving too fast to paddle into. In 1985, the term unridden realm was coined for waves over 35 feet, waves considered unrideable by any man. A Hawaiian waterman named Buzzy Kerbox was convinced that the speed required to surf the big waves could be achieved by entering the wave like a water skier.
So we took my Zodiac out in like 15 to 20 foot surf at Phantoms, and we went out and dropped into this big wave. I floored it, and we just barely outran this thing. It was just nipping at our heels, and then after that it's like, well, if we're gonna be out here playing in this big surf, we gotta, have more power than that.
By graduating to more powerful wave runners, Kerbox and other trailblazers eventually perfected the technique of toe-in surfing.
With the toe-in technique, you're up and riding on your board, just like water skiing. You're holding onto the tow rope, and your driver drives you around on the outside.
Once tow surfers learned how to catch these waves, they looked for ways to master them. They switched to smaller boards, strapped themselves in, and let it rip.
We can go to the outer reefs and ride waves bigger than we ever rode at Waimea every time Waimea breaks. So surfing has really taken a quantum leap forward.
The toe-in technique has taken surfing to a new level of excitement, and with it, a new level of danger.
It's like being chased by an avalanche, it really is. You're skiing down a mountain and the mountain's following you.
Dan Moore, Ken's toe-in partner, knows that a wipeout on the outer reefs can be deadly.
It's a scary experience. I went down to the bottom on my second turn, and the board cavitated, and I spun out, and it ended up doing a face plant and sucked up over the falls. It was like slow motion at first. You're going up through the back of the wave, and then it grabs you and sucks you over, and the explosion is just horrendous. It just forces you down. You're immediately, within seconds, you're 30 feet underwater. Your eardrums feel like they're going to explode because you haven't had time to equalize your ear pressure. It's like being in a spin cycle, I guess. And sometimes it takes 15, 20 strokes to get to the top. You're 30, 40 feet underwater. And you come up and you're dizzy. You're seeing stars. You're delirious. And you're not sure where the next wave is.
To prepare themselves for paralyzing hold-downs and blinding disorientation, Bradshaw and his partners have developed some unique underwater training techniques, like running with rocks along the ocean bottom. In 30 feet of water, they pick up an 80-pound rock and sprint out to sea, furthering their lung capacity and endurance. They also swim through lava tubes, a physical and mental challenge. The swimmer must remain calm while swimming through the tunnel because he will not be able to surface until he reaches the other end. This type of conditioning teaches the surfers to relax and be patient, traits they will need while being held down by 100 tons of water. Many may feel that these men are daredevils, foolishly risking their lives, but Bradshaw disagrees.
We're not daredevils. We're risk technicians. We understand the risks that we're facing. We understand what we have to do to get out of these situations we put ourselves in.
It's through risk management and exhaustive training that extreme surfers have come to prepare themselves for the largest surfable wave on the planet, Jaws. When Jaws gets big, the earth shakes. When Jaws gets big, everything else gets really small. Only a handful of athletes possess the courage and skill to venture into the wave's teeth. Dave Kalama is one of them.
You've got that adrenaline flowing through your veins, and that set comes, and you're at the end of the rope, and you release. It just energizes your spirit.
Kalama has perfected the art of big wave surfing through years of preparation with his body and his mind.
A lot of it's confidence, and confidence is just a state of mind, it's an attitude, and you don't get that instantly. You have to earn it, and you have to build it, and you have to go through all the processes that it takes to gain that confidence in order to attempt to ride that wave.
Located on the north shore of Maui, the break remained unridden for years. One must navigate through a labyrinth-like maze of pineapple fields to reach the cliffs above the waves. But there is no way down the sheer walls. The only way to reach the break is by water. Over 3 miles down the coast, at a secret location, the extreme surfers discovered a cove where they could launch their jet skis. The source of the tremendous power of breaks like Jaws is not the movement of water, but the movement of energy. Storm waves are produced by wind. The longer and stronger the wind, the greater the swell produced. Storms that create great energy are capable of producing immense swells. A monster swell heading for Jaws starts with a winter storm near the Aleutian Islands off the coast of Alaska, 1,900 miles north of Maui. 30-foot swells are formed and march their way southward through the Pacific at 25 miles per hour. 3 days later, the energy of the swell hits Jaws' steep reef, moving from deep ocean to shallow water in less than a minute. This depth change cuts the speed of the wave in half and compresses the wave, causing it to rear up to maximum height, sometimes 50 feet when measured from the back. Measured from the front, a wave can reach 100 feet. A wave like Jaws is so immense it creates its own wind, so ravenous for water it creates a depression in its path. If a surfer goes under at its base, the change in pressure can break his eardrums instantly. While most might run from such danger, when an extreme surfer gets word of such swells, he waxes up his board and waits like a kid for Christmas.
When I know there's a big swell coming, it's hard for me to concentrate on anything. All I can think about is getting out there and riding the big waves.
Buzzy Kerbox is the quintessential Hawaiian waterman, diver, paddler, swimmer, and surfer. When the surf gets big, he can be found at Jaws.
I would describe Jaws as the biggest, scariest wave I've ever encountered. No matter how many times you've been out there, when it gets big, it really commands respect.
As one of the pioneers of tow-in surfing, Buzzy has built his life around the ocean. In the 1970s, he was a top-rated pro surfer. Currently, he competes in longboarding contests and runs a surfing school.
It's a passion of his for sure. I think a lot of times I feel like that's the first thing in his life.
Buzzy's wife, Kirsten, has witnessed her husband cheating death on big waves with a passion that has become the rudder in his life.
He gets up real early, checks his computer every day, knows what the surf is going to do. If it looks like there's a big swell coming, he's very prepared, days ahead.
Today's surfers no longer have to rely on their instinct and observation to know when the next swell will hit. The technology of satellite imagery, electronic buoys, and internet services have brought surfing into the computer age. A ride at Jaws can last around 20 seconds, but the process leading up to it has been a lifetime of preparation. In the summer, Buzzy takes to the solitude of the ocean, paddling hundreds of miles per week in anticipation of winter swells. By the time winter arrives, he and his tow-in partner, Victor Lopez, have their equipment prepped and waiting.
It's hard for me to sleep. I'm just amped up, working on the skis, working on the boards. Are we ready? You know, it's been waiting for this. Here it is. You know, get ready. And it's just hard to think about anything else but getting out there.
Jaws is considered the Everest of big waves. The tube is large enough to hold a motorhome. This is the ultimate ride for extreme surfers. When they go down, however, it is the ultimate wipeout.
The amount of power and energy when you're held under there and dragged along. I had one wipeout. I went down and I was probably dragged 100 yards underwater in about 2 seconds. It's moving so quick and it's so dramatic and traumatic, and it's nothing like it. Usually just about the time you get up for your breath of air, the next wave is about to you. So you get usually maybe one good breath and then you got to go under again and face the next one, and there might be another one after that. And that's one of the scariest things, is getting caught.
The threat of death menaces the deepest thoughts of every big wave surfer. Nowhere is this threat more real than at a place called Mavericks, the most dangerous wave in the world.
When I think about the most dangerous surf spots in the world, I don't think about any place else but Mavericks.
But Mavericks has just a couple more variables with the rocks, you know, and a couple more variables, the sharks, the cold, dark, gray water, you know, it's heavy. It's a gnarly place, man.
You just look at it and you just have this gut feeling not to go, because it could be the end of your life.
Located about a half-mile off a rocky Forbidden Point near San Francisco, Mavericks was a dead spot to surfers until a local named Jeff Clark began to take notice.
We'd sit there and we'd watch the most magnificent wave we'd ever seen. This giant peak that would come out of the ocean and just break with so much thunder and power. You know, we'd just sit up there and watch it all day long.
As much as Jeff and his friends admired the wave, healthy fear kept their feet on land, until one day when Clark looked out at a perfect wave and could wait no longer. Clark measured the waves for hours. Finally, he dropped in on a 20-footer, and Mavericks was alive.
And I kicked out, and I was just, my heart's in my throat, just, and my adrenaline's rushing, and I'm just going, oh my goodness, what did I just survive?
It took Clark 15 years to find someone willing to surf Mavericks with him. These days, he's joined by a fearless 21-year-old from Santa Cruz named Jay Moriarty.
It's pretty incredible because you can feel this mountain of water come up behind you, and there's just so much power, and your adrenaline's pumping, your heart's in your throat.
The Mavericks experience is quite different than that of the warm, inviting waters of Hawaii. To survive 50-degree water, surfers wear thick rubber wetsuits from head to toe. Mavericks can kill in more ways than any other wave in the world. great white sharks hunt the reefs in the dark, frigid waters below. Yet the killers below are nothing compared to the man-eater above.
When you catch a wave at Mavericks, it's like jumping off a 4-story building and running down the hill and having it tumble down the hill after you. You know that you make a mistake, you're gonna pay for it.
A wipe out at Mavericks can be pretty severe. I mean, every part of your body's being ripped in a different direction. Your skin feels like it's being peeled off your bones.
The stiffest penalty for wiping out at Mavericks is encountered in the boneyard, also known as the death zone, a jumble of jagged, truck-sized boulders which are Mavericks' version of the beach.
The boneyard's really, really dangerous. The rocks are some of the most jagged rocks on this coastline. They're really sharp. I mean, it's not a pretty place, and you want to stay out of there at all costs because you might not come out.
Jeff puts all of his big wave experience to use in shaping many of the boards that are used to surf Mavericks and other big waves.
The type of boards that we use at Mavericks are Rhino chasers. If you have your big wave guns, they're 10 feet long, they're 3.5 inches thick, they're shaped like stealth fighters, they're missiles, and they're for catching the biggest waves in the world.
Jeff has enough board orders to keep him busy, but when Mavericks goes off, he and Moriarty are always the first ones in the lineup. Moriarty has earned a reputation as one of the hardest chargers in big wave surfing. On an epic day in 1994, Jay became an unlikely hero for charging straight into one of the worst beatings Mavericks has ever dished out.
And I paddled out, kind of past everybody to my normal lineup. Paddled for the wave, I thought I had it. Everything looked good, I stood up. And then all the wind came up underneath me and the wave jacked up so much, it kind of sucked me backwards up the face. And it just held me suspended in the lip.
And we're looking at this set come in, and it is huge, broad, giant waves. And the first wave of the set, we see somebody paddling in. And it's like, this wave stands up 50 feet tall. And he's paddling in, and he stands up, and all of a sudden, there's no water. He's out in midair. He's jumping off the cliff. He's free falling.
And I can remember looking down, just going, oh my God, what did I get myself into, you know? I'm like, okay, here we go. Like, all of a sudden, there was just this enormous pounding. It hit me so hard, I don't know how I stayed conscious.
Surfer Magazine called Jay's free fall the wipeout of the millennium. By surviving the fall, Jay became a legend. Or, more appropriately, Mavericks became a legend. Like the other superstars of the big wave world, such as Jaws and Waimea, it's become a wave that is tracked and monitored from around the world. Now, when a swell tracks into Mavericks, the world's best surfers are there waiting for it. But for the last few years, they've been seeing something they've never before seen in a big wave lineup: a woman. Sarah Gerhardt is one of the few females regularly surfing big waves.
I read about Jay Moriarty, like this young kid who charged out there, and all of a sudden it became this complete obsession for me. There was a point that I just wrote in my journal, okay, I could give up everything right now and move up there and just let this wave take over my life.
Before tackling Mavericks, she needed to prepare her mind and body. Under the tutelage of her husband, Mike, a big wave veteran, she began a grueling routine of paddling, mountain biking, and strength training. On March 22, 1999, Sarah did what no woman before her had done at Mavericks.
I looked around, no one was going. I knew it was me. I just turned around and I committed. And here I was looking down, 35 or 40 feet. Okay, here I go.
In the surfing world, being the first woman to surf at Mavericks is comparable to being the first woman to climb Mount Everest.
It was amazing. was amazing. I'm glad I didn't go down that one.
I do worry about her, but I know she's capable physically and mentally. I think she's very capable as well. Otherwise, I really wouldn't encourage her to go out there and do what she's been doing.
Among the extreme surfing elite, taking Mavericks is a major exploit. Among female surfers, it is an unparalleled accomplishment. As a full-time student working on her doctorate in chemistry, Sarah is helping to dispel the myth that all surfers are unmotivated.
What you're seeing here is a titanium sapphire crystal that helps us get our femtosecond pulses. And what you see here is actually wave packets moving across the screen.
When the big wave beckons, Mike and Sarah are there, cheating death at Mavericks. As with all extreme sports, big wave surfers know that death can be a moment away. By the mid-90s, Mavericks was drawing the best surfers from all over the world. Ken Bradshaw was among those who couldn't resist the lure.
It's another Everest, you know. And I was obsessed with the spot. I was trying to go every swell there for a long time.
Ken had been surfing Mavericks for a couple of years before he began to develop a friendship with his longtime rival, Mark Fu. Largely through self-promotion, a flashy style, and utter fearlessness, Fu was becoming a legend in Hawaii. But he had not yet experienced the rush of Mavericks.
Mark and I were talking. He said, "Yeah, I want to go. I want to go. I want to go." I said, "Yeah, okay. Well, we'll go."
In December of '94, the largest waves to ever hit the California coast stormed into Mavericks. Bradshaw and Fu were there. It was a beautiful day at Mavericks, yet the surf was not unusually large until a rogue set rolled in. Bradshaw began to paddle for a wave, but then pulled out. Fu went for it. On the next wave, Brock Little and Mike Parsons took off together. As the green wall began to rear up, all eyes turned to watch their wave. No one noticed that Fu hadn't surfaced.
Everybody's telling me, "Be glad you didn't go." I said, "Really? How come?" He goes, "Because Mark really ate it bad, and Brock and Parsons ate it really bad." I said, "Is everybody okay?" He said, "Yeah, we think so."
Fighting for their lives, Parsons and Little were swept into the boneyard. Parsons' leash running from his board to his ankle was snagged in the rocks and nearly drowned him before it snapped. Little was pushed into shore by pounding waves. Fu had still not surfaced.
Yeah, I was down for a really long time thinking, whoa, this is, I gotta relax here. This is a serious wipeout. And I was down really deep and I felt the body slam into me. And the whole time I was thinking, oh no, me and Brock are tangled, our leashes are tangled.
In fact, Parsons had slammed into Fu's body. It took over an hour before the surfers realized that Fu never surfaced.
We saw Mark's surfboard floating around out there in the middle of the ocean. I was like, something's not good here. I think he's still attached to that board. And so we pulled up on his body, and sure enough, he was unconscious, face down, and myself and Evan Slater pulled him out of the water.
When he fell, Mark slammed into the water with tremendous force and skipped down the face, not penetrating the surface. He was sucked back up the face and thrown back down with the entire force of the wave. His body can be seen trapped in the white water going over the falls. Fu may have been knocked unconscious by the force of the wave or tangled up in the rocks as Parsons had been. Ironically, Mark Fu had been quoted as saying, "To catch the ultimate wave, a surfer must be willing to pay the ultimate price." At Mavericks, he paid that price, and it shook the extreme surfing community to the bone.
It was the saddest day ever around here. It went from the most beautiful, magical day to we lost somebody special.
Months later, Mark's friends held a paddle-out ceremony to say goodbye in the surfer tradition. Clark held his own ceremony for his hero, who had died in his backyard.
I took a moment, spent my 20 minutes with saying my piece with Mark and with the spot and searching my soul for why. And at the end of that, I said, okay, Mark, let's catch some waves.
Like the rest of the surfing community, it didn't take long for Clark to get back in the water. Many rationalized Foo's death as a fluke, that he had hit his head, that he was tired from the long flight. But a year to the day later, Californian Donnie Solomon drowned after a wipeout on the North Shore. Then in 1997, tragedy struck again when an up-and-coming big wave surfer named Todd Chesser paddled into a big wave at Waimea. Fewer people have surfed these giant waves than have traveled into outer space. And yet, of this small group, 3 of them are gone. Still, big wave surfers have managed to suppress their fears.
Well, certainly Donnie and Todd and Mark Foo, they've all, as much as we like to charge these waves and as much as we all love being out there and this stuff and we're never going to stop doing it, certainly we're very aware of the consequences of what can happen.
Yeah, you'd be lying if you said you weren't a little afraid, yeah. But if you're worried about dying and surfing big waves, then you really shouldn't be out there.
One reason these surfers have been able to set fear aside is that when they go down under a mountain of water, there are trained men and women out there who are willing to go in after them. When a surfer goes down on a monster wave, there are only seconds to pull him out. As a lifeguard on the island of Oahu, Brian Kealana is a true Hawaiian waterman who's been saving lives for over 20 years. As a big wave surfer himself, Kealana is well aware of the dangers of the sport. He's pioneered the use of wave runners for open water rescue.
The use of the personal watercraft has actually escalated our life-saving skills into a whole new level. It's controlled, use the body momentum with the water, elevate that person, roll them on top of the sled, which is ocean level, and once that person is on top, then you just take off and get into a safety zone.
When a rescue team enters the impact zone of a wave like Jaws, they have just seconds to get the surfer out before the next wave buries them all.
You've only got maybe sometimes 17 seconds between the waves by the time you go in and time you come out, and you've got to really be on top of the timing, because if you're not, that wave's going to catch up and it's going to take both of you out.
Sean Aladio is an expert on surf rescue. Well before a big wave event gets underway, specialists like Sean have scouted for hazards.
You want to look at the swell height, the intervals, and the underwater, the geomorphic terrain underneath the surface of the water to try and see what kind of obstacles that you're going to have.
Extreme rescues require precision, fitness, and skill. Kealana spends countless hours practicing rescue techniques and even more time training.
We train in such an extreme way because I practice extreme safety because I do extreme things. In order to deal with the dangers, I need strength, to oppose or hold the danger back. I need speed to avoid or outrun this danger. I need to be as agile as possible so I can outmaneuver these dangers. Flexibility to reduce injury, and the last is endurance, so I can achieve my mission.
The winter of '97 and '98 was a record period for surf rescues in Hawaii. El Nino, which was disrupting weather patterns and wreaking havoc all over the world, was generating epic swells for extreme surfers. El Nino energized the surfing world and inspired a unique contest sponsored by a new surfboard manufacturer. The K2 Challenge offered $50,000 to any surfer in the world who ended up paddling into the biggest wave that winter. From Hawaii to California, surfers were paddling into the biggest waves they'd ever seen. The prize created a lot of excitement in the surfing world, but it also generated controversy.
One of the negative things was there was a guy in the North Shore that tried to paddle out, and they had Waimea Bay closed. The police and lifeguards are trying to stop me, so, hey, you can't stop me, I'm going out for this 50 grand, all I have to do is catch one wave. And as soon as the lifeguards weren't looking, he jumped in the water, paddled out. Huge set came, caught him in the, on his paddle out and almost killed him. He came in throwing up, and then they arrested him. But I think that's a situation where having $50,000 for the biggest wave makes people take chances that they wouldn't ordinarily take in big waves. But the other side of the coin, when you're out there and you're looking at a 30-foot wave, it's 50,000 really doesn't make much of a difference whether you're going to go or not. The kind of money doesn't matter suddenly when you're out there.
An accomplished big wave surfer named Taylor Knox also had his reservations about the contest.
Especially after losing 3 great surfers, it was like, I just was hoping no one would get hurt. If no one got hurt, I thought it was going to be a great thing.
Conditions appeared to be just right during the Reef Big Wave World Championships. The international contest was held at a break called Killers. Killers is a big wave spot located on Todos Santos Island off the coast of Mexico.
I mean, I knew that the contest was going to be won by someone that day at Todos because just the waves were huge and the conditions were really good.
Knox's first wave that day ate him up and almost sent him home.
I took off on the wave and ate it real bad, cartwheeled down the face, washing machine, the whole 9 yards. That I just paddled out with the blinders on and just said, I'm going on the next wave, I don't care what it looks like. I could hear all my friends going, go, go, and I was like, yep, I'm going for sure. And then, I dropped in, the rest is history.
That wave was pretty awesome to watch. I was sitting there with Brock Little actually, and we were both going, here it is, $50,000 if he goes, and he spun around and went, and it was so amazing how he made that drop. It was so steep, and that wave was so big. I was so stoked for my buddy to watch him ride a wave that big, and it was a neat thing.
Taylor Knox won the K2 Challenge and took home the check for 50 grand. Though it was big enough to win the money, it wasn't the biggest wave ever ridden.
A high surf advisory remains in effect for the north and west shores of all Hawaiian Islands for surf of 20 to 30 feet with occasional higher sets. Residents along the affected shores are urged to be extremely cautious and take immediate measures to protect life and property.
The big wave surfing community had waited a lifetime for a natural phenomenon like El Nino to bring them the perfect surf conditions. For extreme surfers, January 28, 1998 will forever be remembered as Biggest Wednesday. On hand to capture the huge surf was an IMAX film crew shooting the feature film Extreme.
The best thing that happened on the filming of this movie was a day called Big Wednesday. And that was January 28, 1998, when a freak storm hit the North Shore of Hawaii while we were there to film giant wave surfing. And we could have never hoped or dreamed that we would see waves that huge. The last time waves that big hit Hawaii was in the late 60s. And the fact that we were there with our crew, with our IMAX cameras, and with the best big wave surfers in the world when this giant freak of nature rolled into Hawaii was just incredible.
Aloha and good morning, Hawaii. This is Gary Cooley dropping in from Surf News Network. It's Wednesday, January 28th, and the surf is epic. The North Shore is being pounded by a monster swell. The outer reefs are reporting waves with 50-plus foot faces. Our prayers have been answered. The huge surf should last through tomorrow. And that's our morning update. Have fun and be safe.
It's pretty amazing for me to think about something that's been my desire, my passion, my entire life, to ride the biggest waves in the world. And so January 28th finally came.
Ken and I have been talking about what it would be like if this was just one of those magical days that all the elements came together.
We've been tracking a few waves, getting used to the feel. So when this thing came in, I knew it was a big wave. And it just kept building and building, you know? And it was absolutely amazing, because I knew it was going to be the biggest wave I'd ever had. I'm going, this thing's amazing how big it was. It was just so much bigger than anything I'd ridden. So I motioned Dan to come in. He comes in, and I ride up to him. I grab the rope, and we pull out. So we get out to the shoulder, out to the channel, and he just stops the machine, and I think he goes, "That was it, man. You should have seen that. That was the most radical thing I'd ever seen. That wave must have been 80 feet. It could have been 100 feet. That was radical."
Bradshaw's ride on Biggest Wednesday remains the largest wave ever ridden. Like Duke Kahanamoku, like Greg Knoll, Bradshaw stood like a god and became a surfing legend. That was Biggest Wednesday. By Thursday morning, all anyone could think about was, what's next?
I think guys will keep pushing each other probably. I'm sure there's some bigger waves in this world, but I just hope no one gets hurt.
The towing thing is definitely the future of the big wave stuff, and you're going to just see more and more of it. And I'm sure there's going to be some tragedies involved with that, because it's simple physics, you know, the waves there's too much force, too much water, and people will make mistakes.
We always have to remember that none of us guys are indestructible. You know, the ocean will always be there, but we have a lifespan where we're born, we live, and we die.
In the heart of the big wave surfer, there's a need that can't be conquered. The answer to where surfing is going can be found in the very reason they surf.
A lot of times riding waves of that magnitude, you realize you're close to death, and I think that experience, being that close to death, really makes you feel alive.
In search of the ultimate adrenaline rush, extreme surfers are exploring new monster breaks, like the Cortez Bank. This mysterious spot was discovered literally in the middle of nowhere. It's located 100 miles off the coast of San Diego, where an underwater mountain rises to within only a few feet of the surface. One day, a magnificent swell will come from the north, and they will be waiting for the biggest wave of all. It may be 100 feet, maybe 150, perhaps 200, but someone out there is preparing to ride the beast.